But it's interesting because I kept telling myself, keep working hard, stay focused, Franco. Don't get down on yourself. Even though Chuck and, probably other coaches down on me, I said, don't get down on yourself.
And if you don't know about Franco Harris, folks, well, you're about to find out who he is.
How good was Franco Harris? When NFL legends were asked about the Steelers running back, you'd expect universal praise. But the answers split the room. Terry Bradshaw called him a quiet, steadying force who never let fame touch his head. Jim Brown called him soft, claiming Franco ran out of bounds too often and didn't deserve the records he was chasing. And decades after retirement, Franco's defense of Joe Paterno during the Penn State scandal turned him from a beloved icon into one of the most controversial figures in football history. So how do you solve the puzzle of a man teammates worshipped but critics couldn't stand? The answer starts with loyalty. Franco Harris operated by an internal code that valued preservation above all else. Preservation of his body, preservation of legacy, preservation of relationships. That code made him great. It also made him polarizing. And to understand why, you need to hear what 5 NFL legends actually said about him, starting with the ones who saw the consequences of that loyalty firsthand. By the way, if you're already hooked on this story, hit the hype feature and give this video some hype. It genuinely helps us keep making content like this. Number 5. Tony Dungy joined the Steelers as a defensive back in 1977, 5 years after Franco arrived. For a young player trying to figure out what greatness looked like, Franco became the template. Dungy didn't just praise Franco's talent, he praised something far more powerful, his work ethic. Dungy said Franco practiced at 100% effort every single day. In an era where veteran stars took practice reps off to save their bodies for Sunday, Franco's intensity stood out. But Dungy remembered one specific habit that defined everything. After every single handoff in practice, Franco would sprint the full 40 yards downfield to the end zone, every time. It was a self-imposed rule. Franco wasn't asked to do it. Coaches didn't demand it. He did it to condition his body to finish runs and to condition his mind to visualize scoring on every touch. Dungy called it a tremendous lesson. He said Franco's quiet strength and daily discipline became foundational to his own coaching philosophy. The sight of the franchise's biggest star grinding through practice reps with maximum effort removed any excuse for younger players to give less. Greatness, Dungy learned, wasn't a switch you flipped on game day. It was a habit you built in the dark. Number 4. Terry Bradshaw was the #1 overall pick in 1970. He faced massive scrutiny and struggled early with consistency and confidence. When Franco arrived 2 years later, everything changed. Bradshaw called Franco a quiet, steadying force who never let fame go to his head. In the high-pressure chaos of the NFL where egos fracture locker rooms, Franco's demeanor was rare. He absorbed the offensive pressure, allowing Bradshaw to develop without carrying the entire unit alone. Bradshaw said Franco's presence calmed the huddle. His refusal to panic in bad situations spread through the offense like oxygen. But Bradshaw revealed something technical that explained Franco's greatness beyond personality. He said Franco always ran to the ball, even when he wasn't the primary target, even when the play was designed for someone else. This wasn't lazy habit. It was active, disciplined choice. And that discipline created the most famous play in NFL history. In the final seconds of the 1972 playoff game against Oakland, Bradshaw scrambled and threw a desperate pass intended for Frenchie Fuqua. The ball deflected off either Fuqua or Raiders safety Jack Tatum. Most players would have given up on the play or been too far away to react. But Franco was trailing downfield, running to the ball like he always did in practice. Bradshaw said the immaculate reception wasn't a miracle. It was the result of Franco's specific work ethic. Franco was always there. He was there for his teammates. He scooped the ball inches from the turf and ran it into the end zone because he had trained himself to never stop pursuing the play until the whistle blew. Number 3. Joe Green arrived in Pittsburgh in 1969, 3 years before Franco. He became the cornerstone of the Steel Curtain defense, but the team was still losing. Green described the pre-Franco era as a time of frustration and identity crisis. The defense was forming its aggressive personality, but the offense remained weak, lacking a focal point or leader who could control the tempo of a game. Then Franco was drafted 13th overall out of Penn State in 1972. Green's assessment of what happened next carries profound weight. Green isn't a man prone to exaggeration. He said when Franco arrived, we became the Pittsburgh Steelers. He brought us out of the dark ages. Green credited Franco with fundamentally altering the franchise's DNA. Before Franco, the Steelers were known as the lovable losers. Founded in 1933 by Art Rooney, the team had failed to win a single playoff game in nearly 4 decades. They were the team other franchises looked forward to playing, a get-right game for opponents. Green said Franco changed the entire culture of the locker room. The shift was immediate. Prior to 1972, the team found creative ways to lose close games. After Franco arrived, they began finding ways to win. His arrival coincided with the 1972 season, which brought the Steelers their first division title and first playoff victory via the Immaculate Reception. Art Rooney Sr., the legendary team founder, summed it up perfectly. Before Franco got here, we didn't win much. Since he got here, we don't lose. That quote divides Steelers history into two clear epochs, pre-Franco and post-Franco. The Dark Ages ended because Franco provided the offense with a reliable, dominant identity that complemented the emerging brilliance of the defense. Green said Franco didn't just bring yardage, he brought belief. Number 2. Jim Brown retired in 1965 as the NFL's all-time leading rusher. He was a proponent of physical domination. Brown famously never ran out of bounds, seeking instead to deliver punishment to defenders. He viewed the running back position as a test of manhood and will. Franco Harris adopted the opposite style. He frequently ran out of bounds to avoid unnecessary hits and would slide or duck to protect his body and the football. To Brown, this was unacceptable. Broadcaster Brent Musburger recalled that during the 1970s, Brown would constantly complain about Franco. Franco runs out of bounds too often. He doesn't take on the safeties. Now a running back I really admire is Walter Payton. Brown told the New York Times he went for the extra yard and took the chances. He said it's supposedly smart to run out of bounds, but he didn't care and wouldn't respect it. When you accept this game, you accept a certain amount of violence. Brown believed Franco was accumulating stats through avoidance rather than confrontation, a method he deemed illegitimate for a successor to his record. The tension escalated in 1983 as Franco approached Brown's career rushing record of 12,312 yards. Brown, then 47 years old and 18 years retired, publicly threatened to return to the NFL to defend his title if Franco broke it. Brown declared that if Franco Harris is going to creep to my record, I might as well come back and creep too. He said even if Franco surpassed him by 500 yards, he would return to reclaim the top spot. Brown stated plainly, I don't think he represents the records that he's breaking. Franco defended his approach as calculated strategy for longevity. He argued that running out of bounds allowed him to stay healthy for 13 seasons, whereas Brown's violent style limited his career to 9 years. Brown lamented that the standards today are lower, and if Franco hangs around long enough and keeps running out of bounds, he'll get my record. The feud reached its surreal climax in January 1985, shortly after Franco's retirement. The two legends agreed to settle their differences on the track in a televised 40-yard dash. Brown was supremely confident, believing his natural athleticism superior even at age 48. Franco Harris was 34. The race wasn't close. Franco clocked 5.16 seconds. Brown ran 5.72 and pulled up with a hamstring injury near the finish line. Brown was gracious in defeat, saying Franco beat me fair and square. I don't have any excuses. But the race didn't change the philosophical divide. Brown continued to revere Walter Payton, who eventually broke the record, while viewing Franco as an anomaly he could never fully respect. Number 1. The feud with Jim Brown was about playing style, but the controversy that defined Franco's post-retirement life was about loyalty. In 2011, the Penn State child sex abuse scandal involving former defensive coordinator Jerry Sandusky resulted in the firing of legendary head coach Joe Paterno. Franco Harris, a Penn State alumnus from the class of 1972, emerged as Paterno's most vocal defender. Franco had credited Paterno with molding his character and preparing him for life beyond football. When the university's board of trustees fired Paterno for failure of leadership regarding Sandusky's crimes, Franco viewed it as a betrayal. He refused to accept the narrative that Paterno was complicit or negligent. Franco became the face of the Paterno Truthers, a group of alumni who believed the coach was a scapegoat for the administration's failures. Franco argued the board showed no courage and had rushed to judgment without due process. He attacked the findings of the Freak Report, which implicated Paterno in a cover-up, calling the report a lie. The most polarizing moment occurred in September 2012. Franco attended Penn State's season opener, the first game of the post-Paterno era, carrying a life-size cardboard cutout of the late coach. The image of an NFL Hall of Famer sitting in the stands, with a cardboard effigy of a disgraced coach holding a sign that read "Due Process for PSU," circulated instantly. Public reaction was overwhelmingly negative. Critics labeled the stunt creepy, tone-deaf, and insensitive to the victims of Sandusky's abuse. For many, it signaled that Franco's loyalty had crossed the line into delusion, prioritizing the reputation of a football coach over the gravity of child sexual abuse. Franco's stance had real economic consequences. At the time, he was a paid spokesperson for the Meadows Racetrack and Casino near Pittsburgh. Following his public comments and the cutout incident, the casino fired Franco, stating they wanted to distance themselves from the controversy. Franco was unfazed. He publicly criticized the casino's decision, just as he had criticized Penn State's board. I'm very disappointed in their decision, Franco said. I thought they showed no courage. This episode illustrated the depth of Franco's conviction. He was willing to lose income, business partnerships, and public standing to defend a man he believed was wronged. That stubborn loyalty mirrored the traits he displayed as a player. A refusal to conform to external expectations, whether it was Jim Brown's expectations of how to run or the public's expectation of how to react to scandal. Franco's loyalty also shaped the end of his playing career. By the end of the 1983 season, he he was agonizingly close to Jim Brown's record, needing only 362 yards to become the NFL's all-time leading rusher. Everyone expected he would break the record in a Steelers uniform, but the offseason of 1984 turned disastrous. Franco, sensing his career was ending, sought to maximize his final contract. He and his agent pushed for a significant pay raise and a guaranteed second year. The Steelers, led by the Rooney family, were pragmatic. They saw a 34-year-old running back with declining production, averaging 3.6 yards per carry in 1983, and deteriorating knees. The Steelers offered Franco a one-year contract worth approximately $385,000, the same salary he had earned the previous year. They viewed this as fair, acknowledging his legacy while reflecting his diminished physical state. Franco's camp rejected it, demanding a raise to roughly $557,000 and the security of a multi-year deal. The negotiations turned personal. The Steelers felt they were being generous by offering him a platform to break the record. Franco felt he was being undervalued after delivering 4 Super Bowl titles. Team president Dan Rooney later claimed they did everything they could to sign Franco and wanted him to get the record. But Franco held out during training camp, refusing to report without a new deal. Coach Chuck Noll, known for his unsentimental next man up philosophy, grew impatient. When reporters asked about Franco's absence, Noll famously replied, "Franco who?" That comment signaled the end. On August 20th, 1984, the Steelers released Franco Harris. It was shocking. The man who had changed the culture was unceremoniously cut. Franco expressed his bitterness, saying he didn't think they really wanted him. Following his release, Franco signed with the Seattle Seahawks. The move was driven almost exclusively by his pursuit of the rushing record. The 1984 season with Seattle is remembered as a jarring, melancholy coda to a brilliant career. Franco's tenure in Seattle was brief and unproductive. He appeared in only 8 games, struggling to learn a new system and lacking the burst that defined his prime. The visual of Franco in Seattle's blue and green was disorienting for fans who only knew him in black and gold. Franco managed only 170 yards on 68 carries, averaging a dismal 2.5 yards per attempt. He failed to score a single touchdown. His longest run was 13 yards. He was eventually released by the Seahawks in late October after a game where he gained just 3 yards on 3 carries. The ultimate tragedy of the Seattle experiment was that it failed to achieve its primary objective. Franco retired 192 yards short of Jim Brown's record. To add insult, Chicago Bears running back Walter Payton, the man Jim Brown admired, broke the record later that same season. For many fans, the Seattle period tarnished the Steeler for life image, leaving a sense of regret that the business of football had prevented a proper send-off. So what do we make of Franco Harris? The legends who played with him saw a man who changed everything. Joe Green said Franco brought the Steelers out of the dark ages and altered the entire culture. Terry Bradshaw said Franco was a steadying force who was always there, running to the ball even when he wasn't the target, creating the immaculate reception through sheer discipline. Tony Dungy saw a man who practiced at 100% every day, sprinting 40 yards after every handoff to condition greatness into habit. But Jim Brown saw something else. He saw a player who ran out of bounds, who avoided contact, who didn't represent the violence and toughness the position demanded. And the public saw a man whose loyalty, once directed at teammates and winning, later manifested in defending Joe Paterno with a cardboard cutout, crossing lines many believed shouldn't be crossed. Franco's legacy is defined by preservation and loyalty. He preserved his body to play 13 seasons. He preserved his effort in practice to build winning habits. He preserved his belief in Joe Paterno even when it cost him partnerships and respect. These traits made him great. They also made him controversial. In every instance, whether running out of bounds to save his knees or holding a cardboard cutout to save a legacy, Franco made the calculated, often unpopular choice to protect what he believed was valuable. His legacy isn't just athletic brilliance. It's complex, unyielding individuality that defined the Pittsburgh Steelers and challenged the status quo until the very end. Was Franco smart for stepping out of bounds, or should a running back always fight for one more yard? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this story gave you a new perspective on one of football's most debated figures, smash that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the legends who shaped the game.